ready to talk hockey. Streaming from the Oilers Live studio. Subscribe or follow today.
Hey, Oilers Live listeners. We're going live after what I would say is disappointing 5-2 loss to in-division team and rival LA Kings. I've got tonight for probably the most somber of podcasts, has been said. I've got Kale, who is from Twitter, and I've got the man that founded Puckpedia, a great resource if you're looking for any information. He has been on the show before, had an interview with him once before. So I want to welcome Hart back to the Oilers Live podcast. Hey, guys.
How's it going?
Hey.
Oh, how's it going? Well, that's a loaded question, I think.
Yeah, loaded question for all of us, I imagine.
Yeah. So if you are listening and you're listening, whether it's through YouTube, on the Oilers Live station, because you can listen through Simple Radio if you like, or if you're listening to YouTube, you can do that, chat there, all of these fun places. But if you're doing that and you're on Twitter, Twitter's probably the most interactive of the sites that people come on to. You just go on to my profile, which is Oilers Live. Click on the video that's streaming, and it'll take you into Periscope, and that's where you'll find most of the commentary, if there ever is commentary. And most of the time we get a few folks that listen in live. Anyway, tonight, kind of a different podcast for me, or live podcast, because I actually only watched the final 10 minutes of the game. I had a hockey game myself, so I went and played that. I was going to PVR it, but these two fine fellows thought it would be a good night to do a podcast. So we're going to get a couple of reviews of the game, and one of them is from Kale, who watched it live on TV, and then the other will be from Hart, who was actually at the game tonight. So always interesting to see what is viewed and how it's viewed differently. So Kale, do you want to start? What's your thoughts on the game tonight?
Well, for starters, we came out super flat, and I don't know why we have a habit of doing that, especially against teams on a back-to-back. The extra dagger in the heart that team is the last team in the league by quite the large margin. It's very incredibly frustrating because good hockey teams don't lose these games. It's really that simple to me, and I wish that the reffing was better. Like, we could go for days on days on how bad the reffing has been. Not just to the Oilers. I've watched other hockey games, and I don't know what is going on, but the ref quality has really sunk down. That can cost you games. But I guess a good team would also be in a position where bad reffing won't cost you the game either. I guess is another way to look at it. But as the game got on, we started to take control a little bit more, and we got that lead, and in typical Oilers fashion, we blow the lead almost instantaneously later. And then, of course, now we're playing with fire. We're a tie game. We give up that one good chance where someone just doesn't make the effort on the play. Kopitar puts the dagger in the heart to put 3-2. And then the game is done from there. We lose all the momentum. I listened to the post-game, Hitchcock. That man knows how to talk. Like, that guy wants you to listen to him speak. And it's almost encouraging to listen to him and what he has to say. It makes you want to believe. But I just think this roster is just simply not good enough. I don't know if maybe he can turn that around in 10 games. I have no idea. But when I watch this team now, I just see a team that's not built good enough, a team against the cap with a team with no assets to trade. And that's a very, very scary, sad thing.
All right. Well, there you have it. That's TV. I'm probably not going to hear a lot different from you, Hart. But your opinion, having been at the game, what was the atmosphere among Oilers fans? The rest and the rest. What did you think of the game?
Well, I guess I'd start by saying you're lucky you missed majority of it. It was in the arena. It was like a real snoozer. I think I saw 3 hits all game, and the only time anyone ever got in each other's face was like after the whistle was like by accident as they were trying to get off the ice. It was just completely devoid of emotion and passion. And obviously we watch hockey for skilled plays and scoring chances, but it's still a game that is best and most enjoyable when there's a little bit of energy and passion. And it was just looked like there's men's league games with a little bit more animosity and passion in it. It was just dull, and the Oilers, they didn't have much structure in their game. I mean, that's one of the things we're supposed to see from Hitchcock, is a little bit more structure, but they could barely complete a pass or 2 passes in a row. McDavid was skating through the neutral zone trying to get open for some passes, and when he would get a pass, it'd be like at his waist, and poor defensive play. It was not very fun game.
Yeah. So, guys, I mean, there's I'm not surprised. I saw the last, like I said, 10 minutes, which just was disappointing. I mean, it's a 1-goal game. You have a chance. I went on to Natural Stat Trick as well to kind of get a feel for what the game story was. I didn't see, other than maybe that one on the power play when it kind of popped over Draisaitl's stick there near the end. There were no real, legitimate scoring chances. I listened a bit on the radio on my way back from hockey. And, Jack Michaels and Bob Stauffer were talking about how good the line of Kara, Lucic, and Brodziak looked, but that they need to score some goals. Guys, what's your thoughts there? Cale, your thoughts on that new line and Lucic? Does he have a little bit more life? I know Hitchcock kind of alluded to him liking that line as well, but again, we need more secondary scoring, and as much as you like a line, if it's not going to score, who the hell cares, right?
Yeah. Well, you know what? They're getting the looks. Now, Lucic has gotten some really quality chances. That guy's just been snake bitten beyond snake bitten. That guy's in a snake pit being devoured. But that line, if you get that line out, I think there's just a matter of time before they're gonna start cracking through. It seems it's weird. We play the team's third string goalie or their backup, they turn into Patrick Waugh or Dominic Hasek in their prime, and they're just making huge stops all the time. And you're just like, how? Like, how are we not lighting this goalie up right now? And it's quite frustrating to watch. But ultimately, I think if they keep that line together, we'll see more success. They are really good at keeping that puck in their end, so I think it's a matter of time before those things start to click. So I hope it doesn't get them the McClellan blender and they keep that going. I wasn't a fan of Spooner on the first line. Mm-hmm. I think Spooner was a horrible, horrible trade at this point. We're 5 games in. He's produced nothing. He hasn't been great defensively. I always feel like the play dies on his stick. Mm-hmm. And at least in Strome, you had a solid defensive player. Even if he wasn't scoring, he was still really playing a really good defensive game. And so, that's kind of sad. But, maybe Spooner changes around. There's still, 60 games left. But, yeah, so far that trade's looking like a giant blunder as well.
All right. Hart, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, that line's fine. Like, they didn't really give up anything. They had some chances. I mean, for me, Lucic, for a guy that size, and obviously, we've seen he doesn't have the most gifted hands. Like, his scoring chances are still, like, really far from the net. Like, they're at the top of the circles and are out to the outside. I mean, he's not like, you look at the kind of goals that Chiasson's scoring, like he's on top of the goalie and in tight. And I mean, if Lucic is going to score, that's how he's going to score. It's going to be banging some loose pucks in. But he had some scoring chances, but like, is Lucic going to score on a wrister from the top of the circle? Like, unless it hits something or there's a good screen, like I don't really think that's where he's going to score from. So yeah, I mean, the line's fine. They certainly were the least of the Oilers' troubles, and they did have some shifts down low in the opposition net. And like, if your top two lines are getting lots of scoring chances and scoring, and your fourth line doesn't play much, and so that's your third line, and they're not really doing much but hemming the other team in, like, that's fine. But it all comes back to the Oilers just don't have enough good players. Like, they just don't. Like, so since McDavid didn't score 2 or 3 5-on-5 goals, like, they lost. And that line of Brodziak, Lucic, and Kassian, again, like, they'll kind of break even, but they're not going to end up plus on many nights. They're not going to end up a minus either, but you need some lines that are going to score and some other forwards that can do something, and yeah, they don't have it. You guys mentioned Spooner. I think he does a great Strome impression. Like, they're both completely invisible. It's like the invisible man impression out there. Like, yeah, I saw Spooner out there because I was watching to see if he was staying on that line, and he's out there skating around a little bit, but yeah, absolutely I agree with the earlier comments, had absolutely no impact on the play whatsoever. And yeah, I guess Strome did that from center. He had a pretty minimal impact. Maybe he was okay defensively. But again, it's like shuffling deck chairs on the Titanic. Like, neither one moves the needle on a good hockey team at all. So
yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, and if we're worried about Strome and Spooner, then it's the team that we've got that we should be worried about. Because really, they should be playing secondary roles anyway. If we're looking at them to play, big roles, then we've got other problems, which we apparently do. What do you guys think, though? I mean, is this a line? Is he going to keep Spooner? You think Hitchcock's going to keep Spooner on that line? I kind of liked Kajula on that line when he was flying, but I don't know that he's the answer either. It's clear we need a second line, I guess, is the big problem. But your thoughts? Cale, who'd you put on that line with? And would you keep Draisaitl up there still, or you keep, or what would you do with that top line?
I would keep Draisaitl there. Those two are just proven to score. You have to go with what you know is going to get you points. That's the only guarantee we have, is McDavid and Draisaitl are magic together. I would honestly, I don't know why he's not top-loading with Nuge late in games where we need to catch up. I think we could do that in late in the game. You play one line that you know is going to be good defensively, and you just keep cycling those three as your best three scoring threats. That's how shallow we are for scoring right now, other than Chiasson. And Chiasson is, I think he's 10 out of 22 shots right now. Everything the guy's touching is going in. It's good to see. Definitely not sustainable how long that goes, but if Chiasson does come in, scores you 20 goals at $850K, well, you're laughing all the way to the bank. But I would put Kajula up there, because Kajula does have the ability to play on that side. He's definitely got the knack when he's on top of his game. He can bury a goal. He plays heavy. He has the skill. He's a little inconsistent, which is his only knock for him. But I would not put Spooner back there 100%. I was completely just not impressed by anything he did. Like, I didn't notice him do anything. Like, it was complete ghost. I don't see why putting him there again is going to help you. I don't understand why Puljujarvi got called up again. I get that Hitchcock wants to take a look at him, but he played like 6 minutes tonight. No real power play time. So if you're gonna, I feel like maybe just slot him beside Nuge on the right wing and and then let him see how he goes from there. I don't understand why we're gonna take a kid who can be playing 20 solid minutes down in the A, who played very well while he was down there, and just let him really just build on that, and they bring him up to play less time than he did with McClellan. I don't understand that either. But we'll see what his long-term plan is. Maybe it'll change in the next couple of games. I don't know. But, yeah, definitely Spooner gone. I would rather see Spooner in the bottom 6 or not even on the ice at the moment.
Yeah, I don't see any reason to keep Spooner there. Like, at least Kajula scored a few goals and created some chances. Yeah, to me, Spooner, like I said earlier, a great Invisible Man impression. Like, he just completely, didn't notice him at all. Like, make any good plays. Didn't really make any bad plays either. But I think you need someone to impact the game a little bit. So yeah, Kajula, or you might as well try someone else. Putting Spooner there accomplishes nothing. But we're talking a lot about the forwards, but I think it also is painfully obvious that their D are just like not good enough. They cannot break up a play, move the puck up ice like quickly, because the forwards are just like stuck moving through the neutral zone, waiting for passes, and like I said, passes at their waist, like, off the boards. Like I don't know if it's specifically like a hitch thing, but there's so much like flipping it out and dumping it in, and they barely have the puck coming into the zone, and yeah, they just like that. Some of these defense, or I guess Chiarelli said it best, they don't have any defensemen that are good passers, right? They don't make a great first pass and get the puck up to the forwards, which maybe if they had some better offensive defensemen, it would maybe make these forwards look a little bit better, but the D aren't helping the forwards out at all right now.
Yeah, and that's been a problem all year, though. I mean, that's not a Hitchcock thing. Chiarelli pointed that out, obviously, before, and he said it right on, Oilers Now. He said, we've got nobody that can pass the puck. Guys, what's your thoughts, on Wideman? Obviously, that first goal. I saw the replay on that, but, that's a tough way to start. But overall, what's your thoughts? Maybe start with you this time, Hart.
Yeah, that first goal was ugly. Yeah, I saw he did work hard in the corners. He was one of the only guys that tried to lay a hit. I think he kind of got knocked backwards when he did, but he tried, and he jumped in a little bit on the offensive blue line, where most of the time they completely back up and have a huge gap. He tried to move forward and keep the puck in a little bit, so he's certainly no worse than Benning. But I mean, if Wideman and Gravel are on the ice for you, like, what do you expect to happen? Like, how many teams would that be a pairing for you? Like, I think if he had a real NHL decent defenseman, maybe he could do a little bit more offensively. But yeah, he certainly wasn't like super impressive, and you're thinking, oh wow, this is going to look great. But you could see a little bit of flashes. He like I said, he was faster than most of the other defensemen, and he was trying to push forward. I didn't really like seeing on the second power play having two defensemen with him and Nurse. And he'd like to see 4 forwards and 1D. But I know on the first power play, Klefbom had a lot of shots, but I don't really see what he does on that power play. Like, he doesn't score with his shot, and I don't think he moves the puck from side to side, but he's not. None of the offense on the power play comes from him moving it. It comes from it getting to the wingers, and then they do something. So it'd be nice to maybe try Wideman on the first power play and have the right shot and see if someone with a little bit more offensive instincts. But yeah, again, you can kind of see the flashes here and there, but yeah, definitely the scouting report on him defensively was pretty accurate, because that goal was ugly. He was turning the complete wrong way and got turned inside out.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that happened to Larson just the other game too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I don't. I hesitate right now because we've got. Obviously, we've got a new coach, and everybody will tell you, and they're not lying. It takes 8 to 10 games before you can settle into a new system. We saw, that first game against San Jose, some really good things. Obviously, with the team was excited to have a new coach. Now they've settled in. Guys, let's. I know it's hard to look at a game like tonight where you had a lead at one point, then you lost it, and then you end up letting in a couple of empty netters. Kind of kills you. It's really a 3-2 game, but it comes out looking like 5-2, and you feel like it's 20-2. Kale, maybe start with you. What's a positive that you took from the game tonight, if any?
Well, that McDavid play where he beat every single one of the Kings coming up the ice, like watching that McDavid magic almost just makes you want to tune in even in a losing game just to watch it happen. Jason, 2 more goals, or Jason. Watching him do that, it's always nice to see those types of stories, where you had a guy come in like on PTO and he's, lighting it up. I kind of feel like he's our mini Maroon story, or maybe even I don't know if, like I said, I don't know how sustainable it is, but it's fun to watch for sure. I think Clefbaum had a really great game. I'm not knocking him. I didn't see him get exposed too badly. He picked up a couple of assists, so that's always a positive. Nuge is magic. I always like watching the Nuge play. He did generate some pretty good stuff out there, and he's not exactly got a ton of help on his wings either. So that's definitely a positive for me. Draisaitl, I think he's a little bit off game for him. He had some chances, but he was pretty hesitant there, and that little gaff there where he should have scored was horrifying to see. And that's kind of being what seems to kill this team right now, is those chances aren't being buried, and you just need one of them, and we're 0 for 10 on them kind of thing. So I guess we'll see if that ever gets to flip around, or maybe I always had this mini theory that Kevin Lowe sold the Oilers' soul to the devil to make the Cup final in 2006, and we've been cursed ever since.
Some of Draisaitl's passes through the neutral zone were just atrocious. Like, it's one of those when you're sitting there, like, you can see it coming. You can see he wants to make this cross ice pass through the neutral zone, and they're like, if you could see it in the stands, obviously the NHL players on the ice can see it, and they would, at best they would be like way behind the guy and hit the boards, and the Kings would pick it up. But the worst ones, the Kings would intercept it directly and go back the other way. Like, yeah, just some of those neutral zone passes, I'm sure, have Hitchcock pulling his hair out.
So now, Hart, what's your thought, though? What positives do you take out of a game like that?
I guess Talbot was decent. I thought early, the first couple minutes, the Kings had some really good chances, and he made some good saves or got in the way. He looked a little bit, I guess, more square to the shooters than he had in some other games, but still another game, was it 900 save percentage? So not good enough, but he wasn't the issue. So I guess that's maybe a positive. I don't know. It's hard to find positives in such a frustrating game. I mean, you see Connor McDavid out there, and he's just dominating when he has the puck. But it's almost like when he passes it, like leaves a drop pass for Gravel or Spooner, you're just thinking like, yeah, that's probably the correct hockey play. But they have a better chance if he just keeps it himself and tries to kind of go it alone, because this roster is just so devoid of talent that that can make a difference and finish plays off. So, I think almost every game you watch, you say Connor McDavid's a positive, but he certainly, brought people on their feet again tonight on a bunch of different plays, and he played a lot as well. Like, especially in third period, he was definitely out there every second shift. So yeah, Connor's always a positive.
So, guys, to be fair, I haven't really watched. I didn't get a chance to watch the last 2 games. So I watched the first game that Hitch coached in, and I don't think that really counts or amounts to much, just because he hadn't had a practice or a couple practices in. I did watch. I've probably watched the last 10 minutes of every game, of the last 2 games rather. I was actually. If you watch my Twitter at all, I was on the ice with Glenn Anderson for the game when they were playing Anaheim. Actually, I just sorry, I was in the dressing room getting ready to get on the ice with and play against Glenn Anderson in a charity tournament in Vancouver. And I got on the ice, and Glenn Anderson skates to me because I had talked to him earlier, told him about the podcast and everything. Really good guy. And he skates right up to me, and he says, "Did you watch the game?" And all I can think to myself is, Glenn Anderson's asking me if I watched the game. I said, yeah, I watched the game. He said, well, what happened? And I said, did you see it? He said, no, I didn't get a chance. I said, well, I don't know what happened. I said, I only watched like the last 15 minutes and, 16 seconds left. Anaheim scores to tie it, and then they poor defensive play and right early on in the overtime, and we lose. And actually, what surprised me out of the whole, it was just, Glenn and I on the, at center ice talking. We played on opposite teams, but talking about the game. And he said, well, I was at practice the other day, and he said, one guy I want to see more of was Cooper Marody. He said he really likes the guy's hockey IQ and the way he plays. Obviously, since Hitch has come in, we haven't seen Marody. But, Glenn seemed just as disappointed as most of us do right now. The thing is that, what I'm curious about, because you guys have watched the last, 2 games, is have you noticed any differences in the Oilers' play, or do you think it's still too early? Maybe Cale, you want to field that first, and then Hart, let me know what you think.
I've definitely noticed our forecheck has definitely changed quite a bit. Like you see the touches of Hitch on this team. You see them here, you see them there, and he seems pretty confident that the players are going to buy into the system that he's teaching. So that's an encouraging part. It's not good enough, and I don't know if even Hitchcock can make it good enough. I just don't know if we have the personnel to be a successful team, even with a good coach. I think Ratty's career is over. As he couldn't crack it in St. Louis, and he isn't really cracking it here. And I think it's really unfortunate for Ratty. I think that injury really took away his chance to really show what he might have been able to do on McDavid's wing. So, that's a little rough for Ratty, but I don't know if we'll see much of him. I think he's going to start seeing some press box pretty soon here. But until I think we'll have to wait 10 games before we can really make a true assessment of his touch on the team and what it might be able to do for us. I mean, a 1-1-1 road trip isn't horrible. For where we are right now in the standings, it's definitely amplifies it as not being very good, especially because the last 2 games I felt like a good hockey team would win those 2 last games, especially after you beat the Sharks. And I think this is what plagues the Oilers, is we just don't win the games we should win if we are a good hockey team. So, I don't know. It's just going to be, I think, a 10 games, and we'll be at kind of a way better idea of what we might actually be dealing with. I guess we do have the advantage. I think we have a couple games in hand on teams just above us. So, I guess we got to beat Dallas, and I'm going to be at the game on Thursday, so I sure hope we win that game. But if we can win these next 2 games, it keeps us back in the hunt and gives you some of that time to kind of figure it out. Because luckily with this really, really weak Pacific Division, I think is the only reason we still have a shot at even making the playoffs right now. So maybe Hitchcock can give us that dagger to make that jump.
Yeah, we obviously we've if ever we had a year where this was all right, this is the year. We still got a couple games in hand on some teams, and I think it's there's lots of room to move in the Pacific. It's hard to say who's going to do what. Your thoughts, Hart, on that?
Yeah, I was at the game in Anaheim too. It's tough to tell how much of it is the coaching versus the team versus the opponent, but I thought both games, Anaheim and LA, the Oilers really didn't give up many scoring chances, but they also barely had any scoring chances. So it was definitely, much like a lower event game than in previous games this season. Like there wasn't a lot going on. So maybe that, maybe that's like good tighter checking from Hitch and not taking as many chances. Like it did seem that they were chipping it out of their end and chipping it deep into the offensive zone more instead of trying to like carry the zone with the puck with possession, which is kind of what you need to do to create scoring chances now in the NHL. So I think that probably had something to do with the lack of scoring chances both ways. So I don't know. I guess if maybe that's the game plan, or maybe, like I said, in both games, there was such a lack of energy and like drive. Like in that San Jose game, they did seem to have a little bit of bounce in their step, and they were pushing and getting up hard in the forecheck and creating scoring chances, and kind of getting in between the puck and the Sharks and using their body. And the last two games, though, like it was kind of non-existent. So yeah, I guess tough to tell how much is coaching and how much is the opponent. Like watching the Kings and the Ducks, like those are both pretty poor teams. Like you could just see they don't have, the Ducks were missing their top two defensemen, and they didn't create many scoring chances or really do much. And the Kings, I mean, their only scoring chances came off some big either turnovers or just real poor defensive play. But they didn't really have any, great plays that made you say wow or like really sustained pressure either. So, it is, as Kale said, really weak division, and now they're playing those games. So disappointing to drop games to two teams in the division that, on paper, I would think the Oilers should be better than.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right there. I mean, it is, I think probably the most disappointing part is, we've all been saying, hey, this is a team that's built to beat the Pacific. Yeah. And then it's 1-3, 1-3-1. And there's a couple of really, well, there's three really disappointing losses in there that I can think of. The loss against the Flames, which, I put squarely, on a little bit of heart, and then a little bit of, McClellan, loving Lucic or not loving the team. I don't know what it is, but that game pissed me off. I thought we had that in hand. And then of course Anaheim, I'm watching the end of that game, and I was watching it in the dressing room, and I thought, it's good. We got two in a row, and I'd already kind of taken that one to the bank, and then of course we screw that one up. And then and tonight, you have when you have that lead, which I knew about the lead, and then I saw I picked up the game on my way home and saw it was 3-2. Those are super disappointing ways to lose in winnable games. And the reality is, depending on how you look at it, I look at it as, and maybe this is the positive in me, is when you can have that kind of team that where, it's more, to me, it's a mental thing. So I know you guys are talking about shortcomings on the roster, and I do believe there are a lot of shortcomings here. But at the same time, I think this is a team that can win, right? And part of that is you've got some, obviously some of the world's best talent on this team. Draisaitl has been, he's been good for the most part. I think last couple plays, maybe he's trying to work out how to play on this new team or whatever. But, he's been good. McDavid, of course, is, all world. And Nuge is good. And you've got Chase on, who's lighting it up at, debate what you want, sustainable or unsustainable, but he's still lighting it up. We really need to find the mental capacity and the willpower, and maybe get a couple extra saves to carry this team through and win those games that we have. Locating Oil says Kings played the night before, had a fourth string tender. It's unacceptable. I agree with that. I think that's like, it's like Lucic, right? I mean, this guy, when the Oilers signed him for $6 million, everybody thought it was overpay, but they at least hoped that he'd get 2 years. and something happened. I don't know, but this is a team that doesn't have that willpower or whatever it is, the mental ability to take it over the top. And people said that about Buffalo for a lot of years. Now they're top in the league, right? And sometimes you just need one or two guys to get that done. But they need to get something, because they've been in most of the games lately. Like, you can't. I know people were pissed off about the Anaheim game, but they were up 1-0 with 16 seconds left, right? That's for the most part a win, right? And when you go into OT, we thought. I think if you're like me, you thought, okay, well, at least we're going into OT. We're money in OT. And then it's one bad play, and in overtime, you don't have any, you can't overcome one bad play in overtime. It is what it is. You're done. So that's a loss that got away. I think the Flames' loss is one that got away tonight. I don't know. I didn't watch enough of the game tonight to have any kind of real opinion on that. But I think we were up at one point, and so to me, that's. There's definitely a confidence problem with this team. I'm hoping that's what Hitch brings to the table. He's certainly approaching it a little bit differently. It's you said earlier, Cale, the guy can talk, right? And he does talk a good game. Curious, guys. He did start to play. I looked at the stats and that he started to play Puljujarvi a little bit more. Did you either of you think Puljujarvi's game got better as the game went on? Hitch seemed to be, at least mildly impressed with him. What's your thoughts? Hart, maybe start with you. Hart, still there?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I think because he didn't get much ice time, but I didn't find him make an impact on the game. He got in on the forecheck a couple times in third period, but I think it's hard to play when you only 7-8 minutes. Like, you don't get into much of a rhythm. But yeah, I didn't see him make any positive plays. I didn't think he did anything poor defensively, so I guess that's fine. But I think it's tough. Like, I think your forwards have to at least be playing 10, 12 minutes to really have a chance to do much. And it'd be nice to see him on the power play too. Like, he didn't really get any power play time. He did get some shifts with McDavid because McDavid was double shifting and played with Kara and Puljujarvi on a few shifts, especially in the third period. But he would kind of grind in the corners while McDavid was trying to get the puck, but not much happened on those shifts.
Yeah. Okay. Your thoughts, Cale?
Not enough ice time really to notice the hell of a lot from him. That's the problem, is when you get a guy like a Puljujarvi, he's supposed to have some high on offense. 6-7 minutes a game isn't going to do. 10 seconds on the tail end of a power play just isn't going to do. I didn't see any really bad defensive blunders from him, so I guess, like he said, that's a positive. He did take that one penalty, which might be a little bit of his foot speed issue, but which is kind of weird because you see him down in AHL. I watched a bunch of highlights. He's flying out there. I saw him fly in the preseason. When he's in the preseason, he looked fast. So maybe his foot speed's just a hair behind what it needs to be at an NHL level. That's something I've kind of been wanting to think. But I think his upside, a Puljujarvi at his potential upside, is a 60 to 70 point winger. Whether we can ever get him there, I do not know. And he also has to take himself there, of course. But I think he has to be given a good opportunity by the team to do that. He's not going to be able to do that doing 7 minutes a night. So, like I said, I hope that he's going to get his time elevated as each game goes on. Otherwise, I would have just left him in the AHL where he's going to thrive. So,
so if
we'll see from there.
If you read into Hitch's comments, he's going to get more minutes next game for sure. That's kind of what I read from him when he was talking about it. I think that, I think he's going to be, he's going to get a few more in the next game. I'll be at the Dallas game So if anybody else is there, reach out. Love to get in contact with you. I'm going to open the lines up. We're going to be on for maybe 20 more minutes tops, maybe less. We'll see. Finish off the pod tonight on what was a disappointing Oilers loss at 5-2. If you want to call in now. It's 587-907-5483 or 587-907-LIVE. Talk to the guys on here, or if you want to join by Skype, you can do that too. Just DM me your Skype name. I'll add you to the call. Downside to getting you on Skype is I can't mute you the same. so if you want in on Skype, don't be an asshole. All right. Yeah. So I think, guys, let's just carry on now. And if we get a caller, I'll let you guys know. There's a couple things that, that's one thing I took from Hitch. It sounds like he's going to play him a little bit more, as time goes on. He seemed to be all right with him. And, I think that's fine. We Oilers fans, I think for the most part, the majority wanted to see Puljujarvi played in some place, a little bit higher up the lineup. Either with McDavid or on the second line early on in the season. We thought that second line would include Draisaitl. Maybe that's if Hitch does that, we finally get to see that. What I think is, I've been dying to see, which from what I saw tonight hasn't changed at all, is something different on the power play. I think it was Locating Oil said earlier, pardon me, that nobody cares about Clefbaum on the power play. They're not even playing him. Guys, I mean, I don't know. Tell me I'm wrong, but was the power play the same tonight that it's always been? To me, this drives me insane that we've got the best player in the league, plus a top 10 scorer in the league. And we can't get this power play, especially against Los Angeles, who I think is sitting 28th or 29th in penalty kill today. Maybe not after tonight. I guess the Oilers did score one on the power play. I didn't see that goal, but I bet you any money that it was on a rush-like play where McDavid took it in. And if I'm right, am I right on that? Is that what it was?
No, I would say our power play was 1 for 3 because of the goalie. The goalie came up with some huge stops. Our first power play was actually, or was it the first? No, because we scored on the first power. The second power play was very good, I thought. We got 4 shots on goal, and they were dangerous shots, and the goalie kind of kept them out of there from getting scored on. The third was a little bit of a letdown, but I think the power plays look better in the last couple of games. That I only caught parts of the other game, but the ones that we had against the Sharks looked really good. For me, this game, the power play did look good. It was more of the goalie just being the best penalty killer on the ice, and just some guys missing a couple of bouncing pucks. He does that bouncing puck. You take a whack at it. Sometimes you get lucky and hit it. Sometimes you get unlucky and you miss it. But no, I was pretty happy with the power play tonight myself.
Yeah,
I guess I just I don't really see what they're trying to do on it a lot of times. Like you're joking, Mike, but you're right. Like a lot of the goals come from just McDavid on the rush because he's McDavid and there's one less guy, and so on the rush they make something happen. So the goal, they did look okay. It looked okay tonight. The goal tonight, McDavid on the half wall and basically passed it through Chase on stick and who tipped it in. But yeah, I would. It doesn't. You see some teams' power plays and it looks like really dangerous. Whether they get scoring chances around the net or not, like it looks dangerous. You can kind of see what they're trying, like what some of the set plays are, what they're trying to accomplish. And I don't really ever see, like, it doesn't seem like a plan. Like it's sort of pass it around the outside and then Connor will, try that cross ice pass or go to the net, and I don't know. I would definitely think it's time to maybe try Weidman or someone else at the point. It certainly, you can see it's better having Chase on in front of the net than Lucic, because I think Chase on obviously looks like he's on. He goes the net and kind of gets on top of the goalie more, but he also has quicker hands, and having the right shot there. Like, there's been a few plays where he's been able to make a play having that right shot, that like Lucic or any of the other guys that were left shots just couldn't make. So that looks better. But yeah, I would like to see them change it up a little bit, try something different on the point. And again, like, I just don't really get like what they're trying to do a lot of the time, other than just kind of hope that Connor makes something happen.
Yeah, no, and that's been my feeling. I mean, yeah, it could have been we had a good power play tonight, Cale. I don't disagree. Maybe it's happened on occasion, but we just haven't seen much of anything. I'm hoping anyway that we see something different from Hitchcock, and you know, maybe Gulleton gets a little bit more say than he did with McClellan. We'll see. You know, I think obviously I don't think there's many that would disagree that we have that's one area where we have the skill, maybe not on D where it hasn't sort of panned out, but we've got the skill to have a good power play. You know, I don't know if some folks have mentioned maybe putting Weidman back there, and just trying him out there. We'll see. I guess we'll see what happens. It just needs to be better. There's no doubt there that. You know, what's your guys? I saw also a lot of griping on Twitter, and you don't always go on Twitter for the game story, but there was a lot of griping on Twitter about the refs today. Obviously, I saw that. I saw the one. I can't believe you'd call McDavid on that in the last 2 minutes. Given that, yeah, I mean.
Well,
we got so much complaining to do.
You grab the guy's shoulder and he just tries to shrug you off. You barely clip him with your elbow. I don't know. Have you guys ever seen a call called back ever in your lifetime watching?
Yeah.
Oh, so what's the story behind this? You guys tell me what happened there. What happened there? Because I didn't.
That was crazy.
I didn't. All I did. I saw one tweet about that. So tell me about that. Who wants to tell me? You go ahead, Cale. Tell me about it. What happened?
So basically, he follows through on his shot. It gets player in the face, but the stick doesn't come down right away. That stick is there for like driving it right up and under the guy's nostril. Calls a penalty. I think it was Doughty skates over, and then another player skates over, talks to the ref, and then they rescinded the call. They just went back on it. I've never seen that ever happen. I've seen actual calls worth calling back never get rescinded, but this call should have standed. It wasn't just a follow through. His stick was up there a long time. The Connor McDavid call was like, are you kidding me right now? There's that much time left in the game. You're going to call that. I don't know what, like, McDavid made that one upstairs comment, and it's like it's blacklisted him with all the refs. Like, they just don't want to call it unless they absolutely have to.
You know, there was shit before, too, against him, so I wouldn't even say it has anything to do with that one.
Yeah. And then actually at the end of the game, I think Spector asked, him about the refs, and McDavid's like, I will never, ever talk about the refs, ever. So, I watch players hang, hook, ride him down the ice, and he never draws any calls. And then a guy grabs his shoulder, and he just goes to pull away, and he gets a penalty call with that left time left in the game. It's fucking horrifying. Like, and it's not just Oilers that these terrible reffing's happening. It's across all the NHL right now, and they need to really clean it up because the Oilers maybe didn't play well enough to win this game, and maybe can't just blame the reffing on it. But there needs to be some consistency in the reffing, and there's just been a complete lack of it, and especially with McDavid. Like, I am throwing stuff at my TV almost when I just watch these guys do these things to McDavid, and there's no call. Like, what's the point of having refs out there if they're not going to make the calls? If McDavid's going to draw 15 penalties a game, then he's going to draw 15 penalties a game. It's the rules. You break the rules, you sit in the box. It's really that simple to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, it's almost like Shaq when you're in the NBA, right? Like guys could get away with everything because he was just so much bigger and stronger, and it's like that with Connor. He's so much faster and better that it's like it's almost like the refs are like, well, feel sorry for the other players. Like, well, what are they supposed to do? They have to like hook and hold him because he's so much faster. But you're right, like Kayla, a penalty is a penalty, and the amount of like abuse he has to deal with, just the hooks and the holds and everything. Yeah, and then yeah, I totally agree. If you and you're not going to call the stuff that happens when he has the puck, and then you're going to call a ticky tack penalty like that with 2 minutes to go on the best player of the game. Like the fans came to the game and are watching on TV to see the best players in the game try to win it, not see the ref make a call with 2 minutes to go. Right? It's just totally like the refs trying to be the show instead of the players. So it's really frustrating. And the rescinded call, that was just bizarre. I mean, I could see Clefbaum's head almost like snapped off his neck. It went flying back when he got the high stick. Like what? So just because the other coach yelled or Doughty yelled, like you rescind it. And having said all of that, like, you're playing the worst team in the league. Like it doesn't matter how bad the refereeing is. You should be up a couple goals and win the game. So I never like to blame the refs on the loss, but they certainly were a factor. Like having almost a 2-minute 5-on-3, you'd have to think that results in a goal. And seeing Connor out there in the last 2 minutes with the goalie pulled instead of it being him in the box and 5-on-5 with the empty net, like, yeah, that had a huge impact on tonight's game, which is again just disappointing. Like the players should decide the game, not the ref.
Yeah, and that's all fair, right? I mean, it's and you can't blame it on the refs. Obviously, this is the first we've spoken about it on the pod tonight. So clearly the fans aren't. They know the team needs to be better. I was just curious, and now because I can hear it now. I don't know how many times I've yelled at players on my team. The ref's not going to change his mind. I've never seen it, and somebody's going to say, "Well,
yeah,
November 26th, LA."
Yeah. So
it happened once.
It
Yeah,
happened.
I don't know if
It
I'll ever
happened
wrap
once.
my head around that. Like I've never seen that in. I started watching hockey and be competent to what I was watching about the age of 4 or 5, and I've seen a lot of games. I've never seen a call rescinded, and here I am at 31 years old. And I've seen it happen. I know I didn't think it was ever possible.
Oh man. All right. Well, you know what, guys? It doesn't look like we'll get any callers tonight. That's fine. We've had a number of people chatting on the Periscope feed, which is great. Some on YouTube, Facebook, etc. Thanks again. Just want to say something here, a couple things before we call it a night. First off, happy to have you back. And for those of you that don't know Hart, he runs puckpedia.com. And if you don't know what that is yet, you should get there because it's a site that I go to a fair bit for any information, whether it's salary cap related or otherwise. And he's got a little feature on there, Ask the Capologist. So if you ever have any questions about salary cap, etc., you go ahead and ask there, and he'll him or somebody will answer it for you. Also, latest up-to-date transactions, injuries, etc. You can get all those at Puckpedia. And I just want to say he's not in any way paying me to say any of this. I truly do. I love the site, and since I met Hart, I've used it a fair bit. The one thing that I do love on there, which I always, you and I have talked at length on, is the agent leaderboard. You can go on there and see which player agents in the league have, the most contracts out. And Pat Brisson has over $1 billion in player contracts, which just floors me. You know what, Hart, I'm glad to see that you're being referenced by some of the mainstream media, including our favorite Elliot Friedman, who I want to say, he did say Hitchcock likes heavy hockey. on completely taken well out of context, but that is the name of the recorded podcast that I do, Heavy Hockey Podcast. One other thing I want to mention before I go off air tonight, which I keep talking about, is the Oilerslive Cup. It's December 9th. It's coming up soon. We still have room for a couple skaters. We've had a couple guys join. We don't have room for many more skaters, but we do have room for a couple. And that is a free registration. So it's December 9th. It's a Battle of Alberta night. And I hope that we win that game. But we're going to play early in that day, 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. It's going to be a full gear, full game at the Oilers or the Edmonton Downtown Community Rink. And then we're going to go after that for a little after party at the Hat on Jasper. And I'll be at the game that night, and a lot of people will be. But you'll be welcome to stay at the Hat or anywhere and continue to watch the game. And we'll hope for an Oilers win. Guys, thanks so much for joining me tonight. Love to have you both back on again, and I'm sure I will. I think that this season is not a loss yet. It's such a awful Pacific Division this year. We've got games in hand, and I was the first to talk about, not the first, but I was one of the first to be there and say we needed a different coach. We got that different coach, and so I hope I'm right, and that's what we need in order to get this team off the ground. I think 3 games is a little too early. So this is the positive me. I think 3 games is a little too early to call it off. I'm hoping that Hitch can get the best out of this team. It is too bad for Ratty. We may never see him again. But for the rest of the team, I sure hope that, we get there. Any last words? Maybe start with Hart, and then Cale, you get... Cale, you got last words last time. I'm going to start with you, and then we'll let Hart get last words tonight.
All right. Well, my last words, I just want to give a couple of shout-outs. One to Deanna Harder, who is a mutual friend of me and yours.
Yeah.
Told her I'd give her one tonight. I also want to give one to Braylee Brooke in the chat there. She's a friend of mine who tunes in one all the time, so nice to see you here. I hope that Hitch can turn this team and get that, get every little bit, because we're going to need it. It's hard. Like I always tell myself, I'm not going to watch the next game, and I do every single time. It's emotional abuse for me. It honestly really is emotionally abusive for me, and people don't like to be around me when the Oilers lose. I get cranky, and I realize it's probably a bad thing, but I can't help it. Like I'm just so emotionally invested in this team that I want to see succeeding, and 11 of 12 years of just this absolutely frustrating sucking is taking a toll on my mental health. So I really needed to turn for my own well-being as well. But we'll see what happens in the next 10 games.
All right. And finish us off, Hart. What do you think?
Well, so on the Oilers, I think you're right. Like the division is so bad that they have a very decent chance of making the playoffs and maybe even winning a round. But I think we have to just keep things in perspective. When you have by far the best player in the league and another maybe top 10 player in the league, to consider it a success to make the playoffs in a terrible division is, I still think, a failure. So I guess. Yeah, I mean, I hope that they make the playoffs. More than that, I hope that the general manager is forbidden from making any major trades without permission from people that could maybe offer some other input. Because I just think this team we've seen 4 years now under this regime, and there's really not much reason for optimism to expect that they can turn it around. And the current roster just isn't good enough. So they're going to need to make some roster moves, and I hope that they have some competent management in there to do that. And just on the site, appreciate the kind words. And if people can follow us on Twitter at Puckpedia. Right now on Twitter, we're actually giving away a signed Stamkos jersey. So if you just find the tweet that we put out about it and retweet it and answer a question on there. Right now, the question is, who is Stamkos' agent? Which if you go to puckpedia.com, that might give you the answer to it. It puts you in for a chance to win a signed Stamkos jersey. Thanks for checking out the site and for all the support. Appreciate it.
Excellent. All right, guys. Well, thanks again, and I'll get you to hold on until we finish this end here. And everyone else, thanks for tuning in. And as always, it's been another great pod. Let's hope the next one we go live is something positive. Have a good night.